Oscar Wilde, the famous writer and poet, once said, "Disobedience in the eyes of anyone who has read history is man's original virtue. It is through disobedience that progress has been made, through disobedience and through rebellion." The rebel understands that the status quo of today is not permanent and everlasting. The rebel believes that there is a responsibility for himself and for the community to change society and uproot its wrongdoings. Oscar Wilde believes that the process of rebellion itself results in a more moral and honorable civilization. What should one make of the rebellions that have failed? Was such a rebellion in and of itself proper and correct, merely having lost the might and power of the misguided? Or was it the false vision of the rebels which caused the rebellion's downfall? Is there anything which society can gain from when experiencing a failed rebellion? A close examination of any particular failed rebellion provides a better understanding of which of the two types of failures existed. In this week's Parsha, Korach and his followers denied Moshe's authority. They rebelled against Moshe. The Medrash explains Korach's argument. Korach dressed his company, says the Medrash, in clothing made entirely of tcheles, the special dye used on the strings of the tzitzis and considered the essence of the tzitzis, and approached Moshe. Suppose a talis, the garment itself, were made entirely of tcheles. Would it still require tzitzis? Said Moshe, yes, it still requires tzitzis. Korach exclaimed, if all that tcheles cannot fulfill the purpose of acting as a proper reminder of God and His law, how can 4 little strings do so? How about a house full of Torah scrolls? Would it require a mezuzah? Yes, said Moshe. Of course it would require a mezuzah. And Korach said the Torah has 275 sections, but it doesn't fulfill the requirements, but the 2 sections written onto the parchment of the mezuzah are able to take care of the entire house? Doesn't make any sense. Tcheles' purpose is to remind oneself of the blue-colored sea, which in turn reminds one of the sky and then the throne of God. Similarly, the mezuzah's purpose is to remind oneself of God and the fact that He took the Jewish people out of Egypt. It is certainly reasonable to assume that if the whole garment contains the dye of the tcheles, that it could remind us of the throne of God, and then the tcheles strings are not necessary. If the house is completely filled with the Torah scrolls and it reminds us of God's relationship with the world, what would the mezuzahs add? Korach is in fact asking a very logical question. Moreover, he appears only to be questioning the laws in the Torah. How is he questioning Moshe's authority? What is the connection in the end of the day between Korach's political rebellion and his detailed questioning of the laws? Rav Matis Weinberg explains that Korach's question about the tcheles and the mezuzah symbolize the political and religious structure of the Jewish people and its hierarchy. The entire garment dyed in tcheles represents the entire Jewish people, who are all holy and equal, all having heard God speak to them at Mount Sinai. If the whole garment is dyed with tcheles, why do you need the strings with tcheles? If a house is full of sacred books of Sifrei Torah, why do you need an additional religious item of the mezuzah? I.e., if the entire Jewish people are holy, why do you need to bestow exclusive distinction and power to one particular individual or one family? Korach saw the whole without looking at its parts. The home is one indivisible unit of storage. Similarly, a garment is one indivisible unit of clothing. If such a unit as a whole is sanctified, then it is defined as a holy unit, a holy house or a holy garment. If it isn't sanctified, then it needs tcheles or the mezuzah to make the entire unit holy. So too Korach perceived the Jewish people. The Jews are not made up of different individuals, says Korach. Rather, they represent one entity, the Jew called the Jewish people. There is no sense of personal distinctive connection, no uniqueness or personal achievement. Everything and everyone is viewed as part of a whole instead of an individual. Moshe heard Korach's argument that everyone is exactly equal and understood that Korach was really saying, I am above everyone else. Because when one sees everyone as the same, then there is no individuality, no uniqueness, no special qualities to any given person. In essence, one sees nothing special about anyone around them. Precisely by claiming that everyone is equal, Korach was in fact elevating himself above the nation, being egocentric and egotistic. Moshe understood that there is a special role and identity for each person, and that is precisely why there needs to be a division of labor with different roles and different responsibilities. When individuals assume different roles, this doesn't mean that some are better or some are worse. Acknowledging the need and potential for individual roles enables the maximization of each individual's unique potential, and that is how the Torah guides each and every one of us. That was the claim of Moshe and why Korach was wrong.